Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching TV Asia. I'm your host, Shoaib Zaidi, and this is our show, Current Affair with Dr. Malik and Professor Pitman. Today, it's 14th of June, and it's 4:16 p.m. in Brisbane, Australia. This show is live telecasted from the TV Asia around the world. And you know that top story, yes, the title also is a top story from around the world. And let's start the topic of the day today, and then we are going to start program with very special content. Today we are going to talk about the life of late MP Duncan Pack, and the second topic is that what happening in the G7 country. Our honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Scott Morrison, also attending the G7 summit. Let's start with Duncan Pack. Thank you. I like to thank to Dr. Bernard Malik for his time, our expert analyst. I like to thank also Professor Pittman. And viewers, Dr. Bernard Malik also suggested that we would like to bring some more guests in our show in order to have more different opinion from different people. And I believe that our producer and our team is working on this. And very soon you are going to see more people in this show to have an outcome from the other people also, as long other than Mr. Pittman and Dr. Bernard Malik. Dr. Bernard Malik, sir, you know that last week, 10th of June morning, on the MP, a lovely gentleman, a genuine leader, especially from my area, from Staten, and from the Labour Party, and really people loves him, especially the multicultural people loves him. So before starting the show about his life, I like because you know that you are pastor also and you done some studies, and I always like to have some pray from you. So can you start the program after your pray?
Yeah, sure. I think it's time to thank God for the great life of our Stratton MP and also pray that God will be kind to him at the time of judgment. God our Father, we come together to say thank you for the great life of Duncan Peck. Charming young man who worked for greater good of his people, who was running around up and down every day, meeting different people, trying to do a lot of good for a lot of people. Father, you have called him home. We believe he's at a better place today. Father, he died of cancer. We pray that his dying of cancer will focus more attention to cancer disease, that more research would be done and more money would be allotted to it. And Father, that while sitting there at judgment seat, you will be kind to him, that you will forgive his failings and you will receive him into eternal life. Make this prayer through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Dr. Baran Malik. Definitely, we believe that he got the ajr, we call it rewards from the activities which he's done, being a good human being and good politician also. And as you already mentioned, that these will ultimately going to be help him as a rewards in his lifetime. Let's start about his life. So, Dr. Baran Malik, you are also engaged with the migrants issues and their solutions. And similarly, we find that Duncan Pack suddenly rise like a good politician as a supporting of the migrants and looking, and especially he was very famous in the migrant community. What exactly do you think that what do you like to say about his political career?
Duncan Peck, I never got to meet him, but from Facebook, he was my friend on Facebook. I used to watch very often. A very involved guy. And when he resigned, everybody thought that he would live long time. You have seen people that do have cancer disease uh, continue to beat defy the odds, and then they live long lives. In his case, when he resigned, I personally, as I did not know him much, but I saw how he was being farewelled by the premier, by different leaders of community. He was meeting a lot of people. He was putting in nice. He was very active on social media till the end. And then all of a sudden, one day, you saw a post on him that he passed away, which was kind of shocking. Not knowing him, but at times you observe people that closely, you tend to have an opinion about people. And about him, the opinion was that he was such a nice, wonderful, happy, jolly go lucky guy. A young man only at 40 had to live like that. From the people that I knew, as soon as I think he passed away, either I called you or I called, I think, Professor Pitman, and I said, "Oh, Duncan Peg is gone so soon." Um, he was very active. When I say nobody thought he would go in few days. He resigned only a month or 3 weeks ago, and then he was gone so soon. And until the last minute, if you watch his Facebook, every day you would see something he was putting. He was meeting old friends, he was talking to different people. Life has become very unpredictable with COVID, and so uncertainties are being expected now.
Right.
Uncertain things happen, we do not know. But in his case, it was a bit shocking. I think he went too soon. A guy who was very accomplished young man who did his law and then went on to serve his people with lot of grace and dignity. And he lived his cancer life with lot of dignity and grace.
Yeah, Dr. Pranavali, ultimately, being a good community leader, you and Professor Pitman and your TV platform also, I think it's a wonderful concept and wonderful approach that we are discussing our local heroes, because again, they are not with us, but whatever they done, we can't do much more, but this is doing some kind of show on their life. It is definitely is one of the good part. I will come back to you and we will discuss a little bit more about his professional career and professional life and his family life. Professor Pitman, sir, a local politician brought up as a career, as a lawyer, as a career, and then slowly he feel, especially when we are discussing off the record program, and I discuss about that what exactly went with the one nation concept and what convinced him to start start politics for the people. What exactly do you think? What inspired him to start the politics?
Duncan apparently was a young man when he heard Pauline Hanson.
Yeah.
And Pauline Hanson's accused of, I think they call it xenophobia, which
right,
opposing multiculturalism.
Yes.
In one sense, I suppose. And he decided he didn't agree with her policies.
Right.
He decided to join the political arm of the Labor Party. He
right.
In Kevin Rudd's area where he worked for Kevin Rudd for a while, I believe. He also worked for some Labor lawyers. And then he worked for one of the unions, I think, for a while as well. And certainly had a strong support for multiculturalism policy.
Yeah.
I think Kevin Rudd, who was the Prime Minister, who knew him very well, spoke very highly of his character and personality and his particular interest in multiculturalism. So I think probably Pauline Hanson awoke his political interests. And Kevin Rudd, of course, who is very pro-multiculturalism and speaks one of the Chinese languages, certainly would have supported Duncan in his approach. And from my understanding, his electorate has, I think, about 13-14% cultural type people, particularly Chinese and Indian, I believe.
Yeah.
So he had strong support from both the Chinese and the Indian people who lived in his electorate. So very popular with those groups. And speaking to a church leader who went to his farewell, spoke highly of him. And I met the opposition candidate on Sunday who knew him very, very well and supported him and was very sad to hear what had happened and would in no way speak ill of Duncan. And in actual fact, not very often do politicians or people seeking political ambition speak well of their their opposition. But he spoke very well about Duncan and had no criticism of Duncan at all as a politician.
Right. Thank you, Professor Pitman. Definitely, the life which started from the Townsville, the child born in Townsville, and he moved for his study in Brisbane and Queensland, and then started his career as a lawyer, then become a good politician. Definitely, Malik Saab, I like to come to you, and before asking my question, viewers, I like to inform you this program, Current Affairs Show, is proudly supported and sponsored by One World Migration. So if you like to, or if you're planning to have any, you have any issue of the migration, feel free. You can see the number on your screen, and you feel free to send an email or contact on this number, and you'll get the answer. This is one of the best migration office in Australia. Now, coming back to the doctor, but Dr. Malik, you know about the migrations issues, the people issues, and especially when Professor Pitman mentioned that his area was mostly about the Chinese and Indian. What exactly do you think that would happen that he won the election with the low margin, then by the time he went for the second election, his margin is increasing. What exactly do you think that a good leader should have to do that shows the change in the numbers?
See, most of the leaders, and I know a lot of them, come with a purpose and passion. And you would see the people who come with passion and a purpose make a difference. In his case, as Professor Pitman mentioned, that he joined the Labour Party and wanted to do something in response to One Nation Party. That means he had a purpose, he wanted to do something better. He felt that migrant community that has done tremendous for the well-being of this country and has contributed to the welfare and growth and economic well-being of this country was somehow being vilified.
Right.
He came with a purpose. That is why he was able to grow his margin. People could see a genuine human being in him. People could see that he means well for everyone. And for him to increase that margin was with Australians and with migrant community. And Stratton, you also live there, is very posh area, is very wealthy neighborhood, and lot of immigrants live there. You see big houses there. So it is not hard for any of us to see a genuineness in anybody. People saw this guy came one with a purpose. Second, he wanted to do something good for everyone there. He was very active. He was going from small little shops to all the big businesses there, trying to show his support. I know one of Indian businesses, Kata Mita, when that started, Duncan was there at Mr. Bal's shop taking pictures and promoting that. So he meant everybody's well-being and people's.
Dr. Malik, a gentleman born on 1980 and just on 2020-21 at the age of 40. We are in Australia. And, normally, if I compare, like, when I talk, I see the people playing with me hockey, 60 age 65, 70 age of people are playing hockey in the field. We are living in this country, not in our country where after 50 years, people are waiting for their death time only because they believe that they finished their age. What exact, and we know already that he has a cancer, and that's why he start planning to he was struggling with the cancer since long time. So you already mentioned in the beginning that cancer, it's a good time to also think and make about that what we can do about the cancer. Do you think in these countries, developed countries, we're still struggling for treatment of the cancer, and especially we can't save the hero, community hero like Mr. Denton?
I do not know if it would be right to say that we can't save. See, many a times man can do only so much. Our research is still very limited. We're trying to do more and more research, and that's why in my prayer I mentioned that hopefully this will bring a new focus, a renewed focus on cancer disease. No matter what you do, something would happen in terms of our diseases. You can see COVID, how many billions of dollars have been spent in research.
Yeah.
And We continue to lose a battle against COVID. So many hundreds and thousands of people are dying every day. So to say in cancer, yes, cancer has been there for a long time, and I'm sure it will continue to be. But from medical perspective, it depends on at what stage is it diagnosed. Most of cancers are curable if they're diagnosed at very early stage. I know in my family we had cancer, and my brother beat it, and he's been healthy. Touch wood, by God's grace, he got it at, I think, very early stage. He went through chemo. He had number of chemos done, and he looks in fact more handsome than before.
Right.
Yeah. So, and that has been 11 years since it happened. In 2012, it happened. So, is it? And if we could beat it in India, definitely you got much better medical facilities, much better accountability when it comes to medical professionals, the availability of medicine, the equipment, the infrastructure. Yes, we couldn't keep him with us for long, not knowing the inner details of his diagnosis. On the same note, I would say yes, we need to do research on cancer. We should be able to defeat cancer at any stage. But what cancer does, it beats your vital organs. And when that has happened, there is hardly any chance of you living very long and healthy life.
Okay, Professor Pitman, you understand the political system, a disease like a cancer, and then a political system. And again, it's an information, it's just informative kind of question that, okay, if sometime you have the disease like that, do you think that your party is going to look after you and your family in a long-term basis? Because in our system, in our country, sometime if you have a problem or you have the death, in this situation, like a tragic death, we call it tragic death, then they will look after their family, or sometimes they allow children to be replace himself as a next candidate. In this country, do you think the political system has something, or it's entirely different and personal matter? It's nothing related with the parties.
I think Australia is a fairly fortunate country. We're a fairly fortunate people. Cancer, of course, is not the biggest killer, actually. Heart disease and mental health, actually, are higher than cancer. Australia has provided a fairly good health system. About 4 or 5 years ago, they brought in the National Disability Insurance Scheme, which I think is probably one of the best in the world for people who end up with major health problems under 65.
Right.
Anyone over 65 then has a range of old age pension benefits for health. So from that point of view, and Australia also brought in palliative care units, which meant you didn't have to spend your time in a hospital. You could spend it either in your home or at a location and get the required treatment for a terminally ill disease. Certainly in Australia, the laws for medical assisted suicide have progressed quite dramatically, probably in the last 2 or 3 years. So this voluntary euthanasia has become a hot topic in Australia. Certainly the religions, generally speaking, are not supportive of it. Certainly there are factions for the right to life who are not supportive of it. There are certainly a lot of legal and ethical questions about it. Queensland, where Duncan has lived, I think has a bill before Parliament on it at the moment. And I think Duncan made some comments about it before he died, about needing a conscience vote on it. And he did make the comment that people should talk to people with terminally ill disease to get their opinions. So Australia certainly has very good health benefits. They are doing a lot of research. Queensland has a huge research centre called the Clive Hoffner Centre. But cancer, I think, is one of those diseases where it has a range of different variations, and although they've found cures for some of them, I think it's going to be a long-term commitment, and I know funding for this has been out there for probably about 50 years or so, and certainly 3 of my parents and in-laws all died of cancer. So it's a common disease, but not as common as heart or mental health, which is interesting.
Right. Yeah, here you mentioned 2 important topics, and that is one of that increased rate of the suicide, which again, I like to get the comment of Dr. Bernard Malik. Dr. Bernard, before taking the comment on this one, because we discuss, and you know, you are you both are involved in political system and political party. What future you are looking of the Straton, especially in terms of party candidate change? So I like to take your note on this topic first, and then I'll check. Same thing for the Professor Pitman. Do you think that there are going to be some changes there, or it might affect positively to the Labour Party?
Look, both the candidates, whatever I have studied on them, are excellent people.
Right.
Labour candidate Martin is actually a staffer of Duncan Peck. He used to work for Duncan Peck. He continued to work till last today. I think they were close friends. He had also run against Councilwoman. Oh gosh, I forget her name. She is a Liberal Council lady. He ran in her electorate and gained some extra votes to increase the margin, even though he lost it. So he's an excellent guy. He will do what Duncan was doing, follow the same policies, support the same issues. On the other hand, Jim is also a great guy. You know him. There is hardly any immigrant who doesn't know him. Professor Pitman had a meeting with him on the weekend. He served in police. He was, I think, police liaison for multicultural societies and issues. I think they're excellent candidates for people of.
Yeah. So I go. So it means your answer is that both candidates are strong. Are you looking some change, some difference?
It's very hard to say. I think considering the circumstances that Duncan passed away, a lot of people will vote for Labour. In fact, if you see the vocabulary that came out of all these Labour politicians that were trying to put obituaries or condolences messages after Duncan's death, can very clearly see that election is on their mind. Saying that he did great for Straton, he wanted his this man, and even Duncan is known to have made a statement, please vote for him. Having said that, I'm nobody. Duncan was not my friend. He was not my electorate guy. I never met him in life. But if he saw what he did, if he saw the way he said it, I would vote for his guy. I don't care who the other guy is.
Right. Professor Pitman.
He will carry the seat.
He will carry the seat. Professor Pitman, these messages, the one Dr. Bernard Malik just mentioned there, emotional attachment of one of the good leader, a gentleman, ultimately going to have, let's say, not the biggest change, but minimum they can achieve the same level of Duncan Peck, what I understand. Do you think that these kind of politics, tactics of politics is fine? This is okay. This is fair in the politics game?
I think you got to understand a couple of things. One is here in Australia, when you have a by-election, probably 90% of the time it actually swings against the government. So that's history in Australia. So there's a good chance there could be a swing. And multiculturalism is a phenomena of the Labor Party, fundamentally. The
Right.
Conservatives didn't sort of have a multicultural policy, and it came about in the 1970s over migrants who generally voted en bloc for the government in power.
Right.
But wanted to change that. So they brought in a multicultural policy. And the Prime Minister at the time was a man called Gough Whitlam. And
Right.
he won an election which was against the trends.
Right.
Multiculturalism is a very popular policy.
Right.
The issue with Stratton is that you've got a midterm election. Certainly there is support for a death of a person, but having said that, the opposition candidate is very strong on multiculturalism. So Jim Vallis is known for his stance on multicultural views, and he's regularly been involved in the multicultural area. Whereas I think Duncan stood by himself, and although his staffer has supported him, there is a difference between the politician and the staffer. The staffer will try to leverage off Duncan's profile. So I think Labor will probably win it. It's about a 14-15% majority, but
Right.
I don't think they're going to win it by that majority. I think Jim Vallis is very popular. So I think it'll go down very close to the wire. He may win by 4 or 5%, if anything, but it won't be the huge majority. And Stratton originally was conservative in its voting pattern until probably the last 7, 8, 9 years. So I think it'll be a close by-election. I don't think it'll be a huge margin that
Good.
Duncan had won it by.
Yeah, Dr. Bernard, Professor Pitman is absolutely right. I worked with Jim Bellows, and to be honestly, he is more in than Duncan Pack in term, physically engaged in community, and many events when I take the help from your office, and you are invited as a guest also, that we find many help from him, and we visited his office, and he's always ready and he's always busy. However, he is serving police, but he was always busy and always available for this man. And I believe the soccer tournament which I am doing on the 24th and 25th, I'm expecting him also to be there and also to help him. He's a wonderful organizer. He is a wonderful organizer, Jim Bellows. He has a good control. He has a good support, especially not exactly on a Stratton area, but people from the newly migrant people from in the Slack Creek, in the Woodridge, and in Runcorn, in Kirby. They absolutely knows Jim Bellows very well from his supporting and very active community action. Do you think that these roles will, as Professor Pitman says, that can swing the results or may reduce the percentage margin of the last election?
Considering Jim's credential, I think Jim should win. But as I told you before, there are other sensitivities. And the way this has been designed, because he resigned it before he died, he was able to put appeals out there. So please understand what Professor Pitman said, that his staffer need not be same as him. I absolutely agree. But when it comes to these sensitivities after death, we all are human beings and get touched by what happens. So a lot of people will vote not because the other guy and the Labour guy would do very well and will be able to replace what Duncan was doing, but because he's being considered as successor of Duncan. So he will most likely get that sympathy vote. Jim does excellent job, as I told you. As soon as Jim's name was announced, I got few calls from my friends to say that, oh, I think Jim is the right candidate. I had never met Jim, and I think I met Jim a few times at your programs and other places, I can't say I know him.
Right.
Yeah. Any other time, if it was a fair go, I think Jim would have won.
Okay, let's make, and I'll try also, and I'll see that if we can have Mr. Jim in our show and get his opinion if his parties allows. He's very flexible, and he talks really nice. Now coming back to the Professor Pitman, last question about the career of Duncan Pitt, Jim Bellows. So when we are talking about a person who's serving, present servant of police, is going for a politician. In our country system, he has to leave his office, he has to take the retirement or resign from there, then only he can start doing the politics or whatever it is. Do you think in your country, in this country also, it's the same? And Mr. Jim already make the same arrangement? Professor Pitman.
There are policies governing police and their role in political elections. You'll probably find that Jim Ballas is actually on leave. He's required to take leave or to retire. Most likely, I'd say Jim is on leave. And then he will run the election. If he wins, he must immediately resign because he can't be a police officer and a politician. He's a little older, he's 55. So if he wins office, he'll probably pick up about 2 years. And then he will have to rerun in the electorate again. So if he picks up 2 terms, or part term and a full term.
No, more than 3 years.
3 years.
3 years.
That's right, because it's a 4 year.
Election just happened, now it's fixed term.
4 years. So he'll get 3 years. That will almost see him through to his retirement as a police officer anyway. So he has the advantage that he can go back to the police if he doesn't win. If he does win, well, he's fundamentally a politician to the age where he would be required to retire as a police officer. So they're reasonably flexible here. There are policies about Jim talking about police matters while he's running as a candidate. He's certainly can run on a law and order platform, but he's not to talk about any police particular specific issues while he's in there as a candidate. But I think what you'll find Jim will do is he'll run the Duncan multiculturalism approach, and he will show that I'm of a similar ilk or character to Duncan. So I will carry on Duncan's work because I'm into multiculturalism. So I think that will be the platform he will run with. And as for his policing, most people know that he is a police officer. So I don't think he'll make too many comments about law and order totally. It'll be about multiculturalism.
Yeah, I think that's a good advice. If the program shows watched by Mr. Jim Bellows, he can get a good tip. But he's naturally a passionate community leader. I know, I met him, that he's multicultural community leader, genuinely. And my question is still the same. I believe what I understand from you, and this is the question I received from the Facebook also, that until you don't win the seat, you are not starting the political, you are not part of the political system. You can still serve your police office also, and you can still do the politics. You can still attend and visit and have a meeting on the politics unless you did not win the seat. It's like that?
That's fundamentally correct. The policies before I left police also said that if you win your seat and then you lose it at the next election, the police will take you back as well. So he could theoretically go back as a police officer. But you'll find Jim will run the multicultural. He's also very strong on interfaith. He's from a Greek background, very strong Greek Orthodox background. He's got some of his children have married Filipino families, Yugoslav families, Greek families, and is very strong not only in the multiculturalism, but the interfaith cultural. Very, very strong on that side of things. And I'm aware that he's approaching all the churches. I know he's approached the Islamic school.
Yes, I know, I know. He has a very good friend in Islamic school. Ali Qadri is CEO of the Islamic school, and he's a good friend of Jim Bellows.
And he's been to the Coptic church. I know he's been to my church. So he's very, probably a little broader than Duncan in one sense, that he's more into the faith side of things and very much into service, trying to provide community service programs for multiculturalism and for the disadvantaged, and very much into the African culture and soccer and basketball and boxing even, to try and develop skills in amongst the youth that they can use in later life. So he's probably, in one sense, a little broader than Duncan's approach, but
yeah,
to the community to decide.
yeah. No, it's really. I think it's a fair statement because Dr. Bernard Malik, if we compare person to person for the services of community services and multicultural, and then adding in addition to the multi-faith, yes, he has a upper hand. Absolutely, Jim Bellows has a hand upper to the late Duncan Peck. However, now the question which I'm going to ask you, you are the best person. Once you have the two character, different character from the different party, but they have the different weightage. However, when they are adding to the parties, then party weights is leading the system, or person weight is leading that area, that seat.
I think in this one it will be person.
Person, huh?
Yes. As I said, and Professor Pitman is saying repeatedly, people have to consider, are they voting for Duncan Pegg or they're voting for his staffer? Over here, people would be voting for Jim. If they're going to vote for his staffer because they want to vote for Duncan, I think that is not a prudent approach. I'm sure Jim would have voted for Duncan too if there was Duncan running for election, because from Professor Pitman's conversations before the program, he was telling that he met Jim yesterday, and then Jim had great admiration for Duncan. So when it comes to politics, I think it's hard to say. Probably Jim would make a better candidate, and Jim would make a better representative for Stanton as opposed to Duncan's staffer. But people have to make the decision that they're not voting for Duncan anymore; they're voting for the staffer.
That's a one thing. And the second, again, another hard one: multi-faith and multicultural. The way Australia is getting bigger and bigger, and that the world multicultural is getting very well accepted in all the areas. However, in the beginning, it has its bit difficulty, and multi-faith also. What is the reason? Do you think that these things has to be promoted more in the community level, in the through the media, through the event? Why do you think the multicultural system and multi-faith has to be promoted and has to be aware with the people?
I think they both are two different things. Multi-faith is different and multicultural is different.
Yes.
This word multicultural should not exist. I'm opposed to it.
Right. Reason for this?
What is multicultural? You want to promote your agenda by saying it's multicultural. I want to promote my agenda. I'm bringing 20 Indians there to do some program, right?
Right.
And Dr. Pitman to support it, so I bring that angle of multicultural. You want 20 people from Pakistan, and that probably are different in their belief than me and then Pitman. You want to bring Pitman on that platform by bringing in multicultural.
Yes.
We want multicultural. It is a one culture of Australia. We need to get real about it. Okay.
Right.
we want to do is we still want to carry on with our little cultures. I want to carry on little Punjab here, a part of India. You want to carry on little Lahore here and Karachi and little Greek and little this and little that. No, if I love Punjab too much, I should be back there. Yes, I want to be able to breathe the way I want to live. Yes.
Right.
When it comes to faith, there is no difference in faith. If I am Christian and you are Christian, and we happen to be from two different races, there is nothing called multi-faith. Yeah, and any faith for that matter. I'm a Christian, and I think you are one of my best friends, and you don't happen to be Christian. Okay. Professor Pitman, I think we get along so well. We talk so many things. We discuss so many issues. He doesn't practice the same faith that I do. So multi-faith is acceptance of one another's belief system. That is what multi-faith is. So in my case, I don't believe in this multiculturalism. I believe in multi-faith. Yes, if you're comfortable with what I believe, I'm comfortable with what you believe, then that concept is not prominent anymore. How many times you have come to my house and like the other day, you were participating in my mother's prayer service. That was a mass. Mass is Catholic prayer service. You didn't have a problem. When I come to your house, when I came for your son's celebration, when he got selected for Queensland cricket, the Muslim Imam played. And I said, Amin after that, just like you said.
Right.
I think that this multi-faith is again overblown concept. It is, yes, we need to be more tolerant of each other's belief. And my faith tells me I'm okay with what you believe, with what Professor Pitman believes. My wife, who comes from a different faith, we don't have a problem at all. I think our house is the most multi-faith house.
Yeah, Malik Sahab, there is, absolutely the concept which you have as a deep message is absolutely right, and it's a wonderful message. What I saw, and again that's why I'm with you, and I like to give more time to you, and I just go for the last question to Professor Pitman. Is okay. What happening, because you are very active community leaders, and I'm also doing from the corporate level the work, and I find when you talk about multicultural, people start accepting and feeling that different people will be there. And when we say about the multi-faith, then they also start feeling that way. Only just welcoming kind of feelings are there, not like some kind of divisions there. Professor Dr. Bernard, this is you.
Yes, okay. I thought you said Professor Pitman. Yeah, multicultural concept is only for Australians and not for us.
Right.
Asking Australians to accept us as who we are, and they've been great.
Great.
You and me are able to talk on this show because average Australian is accepting who we are.
Right.
And culture should end there. More than that, we need to step up and behave like we're Australians. We need to step up and act as if we live in this country and we own the country and we want to positively contribute to the country. It's like, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Same thing. This is our country now. We love this country. We pray every night before we go to bed. We pray for the leaders, and we talk about the leaders too in our lunches, right? That is multiculturalism.
Right. I think it's a good topic, and definitely, Professor Pitman. Last question to you. Let's say you as many times when I meet Mr. Dr. Malik, he says Professor Pitman. He says yes, he's a real professor and real-time professor, not a real professor, real-time professor. And I say, what does it mean? He says every time you will find him looking the books, reading the books, looking the researches and doing something. So now this is the time when we find out something in the research. What research says about the human human migration to the new worlds? How does it happen? Does they bring their culture there? Does they just starting and getting a part of the system, or they have, I'm talking about the civilization from the past days, how the civilization moved from one place to other, half and half, 0 to 100, someone from me, and I bring something and then I settle there. How the civilization works?
In Australia, I think there's probably been 3 stages.
Right.
The first one was World War II, brought a lot of migrants here with the agreement as a result of displacement out of Europe.
Right.
We saw a lot of Italians, a lot of French, a lot of Poland, a lot of people, a lot of Jews came to Australia. We sort of had an integration policy. So it was accepted very much like Dr. Bernard said, that they were Australians, they were accepted. One of the sideline issues was that most of them were in financial difficulties, and the research showed that one of the criticisms of the migrants was their children, whose conviction rate was 3 times that of Australians. So that was probably the first stage. The second stage was we took a lot of refugees from different countries like Vietnam, Africa, and those places. Now, refugees are slightly different. They're not considered migrants, and you can't send them back to their country of origin. So we received a lot of refugees, and the Labor Party came to power with their multiculturalism approach, which suited what they call enclave living in Australia. So what happened was the Vietnamese went and lived in a suburb, or Chinese lived in a suburb, an enclave, a community. And that created barriers in Australia. I think the third stage that has occurred is to look at how culture can be connected to each other. And certainly religion has got caught up in this in probably about the last 20 years, and trying to connect through core values and core interests. And I think sports has been one of the great fields. The soccer movement decided not to have English teams or Lebanese teams or African teams. You had to play in your location. So you could have a Middle Eastern person playing with an African person who was playing with an Irish person. So sport, I think, has brought us together. I think the other interesting one has been food. I'd never tasted Indian food in my life as I grew up as a young person. Never tasted Chinese or Vietnamese food. Never seen it. Had tasted the Italians and German and French food, but none of these other countries. And now I go home and I eat Indian food, I eat Chinese food, I eat Lebanese food. Not that I eat it every night, but what I'm saying is the food has changed us. I think sports has changed us, but I think also many of the professionals we deal with in medicine and engineering are from different backgrounds. And I had an eye surgery about 3 or 4 years ago, and I went in and the man was from India, and I thought I'm going to have difficulties understanding him. But he spoke better English than I did. And the discussion was all about football and Australian politics while he was doing the surgery. And so I learned more from the eye surgeon than I did from reading the newspaper. And he was from an Indian background, and his English was absolutely perfect. And yet I'd made a judgment call before I went in, and yet he's now an eye specialist and skin specialist surgeon, and makes a major contribution to the health system in Australia. So I think all of those things are changing the multiculturalism. The faith issue is another side story, and perhaps in the future that might be another discussion, but I think faith is changing things. And as Jim Ballaston said to me on Sunday, he said, I didn't know your church existed, I didn't know your people existed, but he said, you believe in faith, you believe in God, and you pray. He said, you couldn't want better citizens like that.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was a good talk, and definitely multicultural and multi-faith, we are going to have a detailed show, because the reason is we would like to have some youth also with us, and we'll see the opinion from the senior and then the juniors, and then we'll talk. The topic will be the crisis identity. I personally find that it's true that there is an issue with the crisis identity when our kids are from the with the bringing the different culture, and as Mr. Malik mentioned, that they will ultimately going to face a time, and that we have to look after, and we have to find out the best way. Dear viewers, we are just finishing our show here, and we did not discuss anything about the G7. The reason for this one, because I like to have a complete talk on the G7, and G7 is just finished yesterday, so still a lot of results is coming back, a lot of strong policy is coming, and people say that America is convinced G7 country that we should have an alternate plan to handle the expansion of China, and that need to become on the paper, and we will discuss that one on the next show. I believe today we discuss about late Lincoln Park life, and then new candidate, especially my good friend Jim Bellows, and then in the last we discuss about the impact of the multicultural and multi-faith values, and really it exists in real world, or it is only the words we are using. That was some discussion we had. So it's over from Shivdadi, and we will come back on the next Monday at 4 p.m. Brisbane time. Until then, thank you, Dr. Bandar Malik. Thank you, Professor Pitman. Till then, it's goodbye from Shivdadi. Thank you very much, sir.